Which city should we go to for our graduation trip? Whose proposal should we use for the presentation? For catered lunch, do we want braised chicken or pork trotter rice? When a group or a team needs to consolidate everyone's opinions to make a decision, majority rules is probably the principle that best avoids controversy and is acceptable to everyone. But what majority rules can unify is only action, not thought. Trying to reach a consensus in thought among all members is far from something that can be achieved with a few rounds of voting or a few numbers. If you add the illusory layer of the internet, things will only become much more difficult. Hello everyone. Today, we continue this thought experiment on internet democracy, looking at the niche dystopian manga by Motoro Masai, Demokratia, covering the contents of the second volume. Last time, we talked about how the cyborg girl, Mai, controlled in real time by 3,000 players through a voting system, attempted to integrate into society for the first time, only to get dragged into a crime committed by Seino, a youth seeking revenge on society. Seeing the armed Seino take Mai hostage and speed off in a van, the two detectives who rushed to the scene after receiving the report, along with the two developers secretly following to protect Mai, all frantically started their cars and gave chase. As a result, the reinforcements got off to a bad start. Mai herself, threatened with a knife, didn't show the slightest panic because she simply doesn't have that function. If anyone was panicking, it was the players behind the screens, frantically typing on their keyboards, anxiously casting votes round after round. As 3,000 players tried to communicate with Seino, Mr. No, didn't you say the crime warning on the forum was just a joke? Please don't do anything stupid on impulse. But Seino didn't care at all. In this materialistic society, where people only value looks and money, lower-class people like him wouldn't be treated fairly. So when he realized he could get attention online by playing the victim, Seino treated the forum as his only refuge. However, lately, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't attract any attention or replies from netizens. Perhaps when he posted the crime warning, Seino just wanted to bait some traffic. But even after going this far, he was still ignored, and even treated as a clown, just trying to grab attention. Fine, then I'll turn this warning into reality. I'll show you if I dare to do it for real. Anyway, just stop talking nonsense. Someone like you, who has had smooth sailing in life, could never understand how I feel. These words completely enraged Flower Chihuahua behind the screen. Don't think you are the only unfortunate person in the world. Flower Chihuahua, who lost her legs in a car accident, still finds it hard to let go, but at least she never thought of spreading her pain to others. Yeah, it's all my fault anyway, okay? This statement, exactly like that of an incompetent subordinate, made Mr. Hidemaru unable to sit still either. I think someone who says something like that is exactly proving they don't think they're wrong. You just want to use those lines to gain sympathy and blame your predicament on society and others to satisfy your own ego. My ego was destroyed long ago by the humiliation and beatings from my mother since childhood. Now, living my days in a daze, I don't even know what I really want. Rocket Man, who was also struggling with his parents, expectations, and his life goals, consoled him. Then go find what you want to do. It's not too late even if you start now. Don't you like cars? Then try becoming an auto mechanic. At Rocket Man, the only one who can decide your way of living is yourself. At Hidemaru, as long as you truly want to succeed, I will absolutely not abandon you. At Flower Chihuahua, it's still not too late to turn back. Next time, let's go for a drive somewhere further away together. The sincere and heartfelt words from these three, based on their own experiences, were transmitted to Sehono's ears through Mai's mouth, moving him for a brief moment. But the next second, he still laughed maniacally with tears in his eyes. Save it! I won't be fooled again. At the next intersection, Seino suddenly stopped the car and pushed Mai out. He roared at her in a hysterical tone. It's exactly because reality is full of people like you who only say pretty words that I became obsessed with the internet. Saying things like, rely on yourself. Saying, I won't abandon you. But the reality is, money, looks, background, education. Without these things, no matter how hard you struggle, in the end, you'll only be mocked and despised. Normies have everyone responding to whatever they say or do. But the phrase I've heard the most since I was a kid is, "You really are trash." So I chose the internet. There are no hypocrites preaching grand theories there. Cursing the boss gets likes. Cursing work gets empathy. Cursing those attractive normies. Plenty of people join me in spreading rumors. If we encounter some idiot dreaming of a future, we attack them together. You really are trash. At this point, Sano suddenly froze. Why does it seem like what he does online is no different from the annoying normies in reality? It's all meaningless. Maybe this is where my journey should finally come to an end. In the end, he closed the car door and drove towards his predetermined destination. On a weekend on the streets of Shibuya, the roads are filled with an endless stream of traffic, and the sidewalks are crowded with shoulder-to-shoulder pedestrians. At the end of the line of cars waiting for the green light, Seno was glaring viciously at everything. Amidst the countdown of the traffic light, his unfortunate life experiences flashed through his mind one by one. And as the countdown reached 0, he suddenly started the engine, plunged into the empty right turn lane, and aimed the front of his car at the defenseless pedestrians dozens of meters away. At that moment, it was as if 3 voices echoed in Seno's ears. It was Rocket Man saying, "The only one who can decide your way of living is yourself." It was Hidemaru saying, "As long as you truly want to succeed, I will absolutely not abandon you." And it was Flower Chihuahua saying, "It's still not too late to turn back. Next time, let's go for a drive somewhere further away together." Seno forced his eyes wide open, trying to look directly at the strangers whose lives he was about to end. But at the last moment, he couldn't help but close his eyes. That evening's news broadcasted a report. At noon today, at an intersection in Shibuya, Tokyo, a speeding minibus crashed into a roadside utility pole. The male driver of the vehicle did not survive the journey to the hospital. Fortunately, no pedestrians at the scene were injured. Additionally, the police have confirmed that 2 hours before the accident, the man had taken a woman hostage at knife point in Shibuya. Finally, things had developed to the worst possible outcome. Seno was gone. Mai, involved in the incident, would of course soon enter the police's radar. This secret experiment with the cyborg could only end here. Mr. Iguma regretfully stated that Mai would be completely dismantled tomorrow. But tonight, let me perform one last maintenance check on her. While Mai lay quietly on the lab table charging, the 3,000 players were passionately discussing in the chat room. Sano's passing is not our responsibility. If anyone is to blame, it's the ones who led the conversation in the car. Rocket Man, Hidemaru, and Flower Chihuahua. And of course that traitor who secretly called the police. At this time, a girl with the username, Twintails, stood up. The person who called the police was me. But that wasn't as Mai's operator. But the action I thought I should take as a citizen? If you all think I made a mistake, I can quit right now. But before I do, I have a couple of things to say. Every one of Mai's decisions is the result of everyone's vote. From the moment we joined, our rights and responsibilities should be a cohesive whole, even if the outcome now is less than ideal, even if there were better ways to handle it during the process. But at least in my eyes, those 3 were the ones who truly wanted to help Seno, compared to people who try to excuse themselves after the fact with, "I was just following the crowd," or "I didn't actually agree." They are much nobler. Ultimately, voting is just to find the greatest common denominator to guide our actions. Only when members respect each other and communicate sincerely can trust be built up little by little, thereby forming a collective will that belongs to the team, belongs to Mai. When everyone understands and respects this will, Mai should become much more like a real human being than she is now. Twintails' speech won the approval of many people. Many also urged her to stay and not quit. And finally, someone realized the most important thing. In the end, Seno didn't hurt anyone. If you truly feel regret over Seno's passing, then make sure to have a clear conscience when making your next choice. And so, the players' discussion finally ended peacefully. Just then, Mai's charging was also complete. The operation interface opened again. But what was reflected on the screen was Mr. Iguma pressing down on Mai, attempting to force himself upon her. Twintails, who was so righteous just a moment ago, immediately flooded the chat room with messages. Destroy him, erase him, make him pay, make him pay. The overwhelming hatred penetrated the screens and reached everyone's eyes. Vote validated. Mai immediately activated her martial arts skills and counterattacked fiercely. That was a program patch the members had specifically added after Sefno's forced kiss incident last time. Iguma was beaten until he had no ability to fight back. But even when he fell to the ground, severely injured, Mai showed no intention of stopping, until someone reacted, "Idiots! Do you realize how serious this could become?" Seeing Mai stop her actions, the battered Mr. Iguma staggered and escaped the laboratory. But at that time, no one noticed that the knocked-over books and blankets had covered the lit heater. The next day, Maizawa was awakened by a call from the real estate agent. They said a fire had broken out in the warehouse he and Iguma rented, and all the goods displayed inside were incinerated. A confused Maizawa hurriedly tried to contact Iguma while also checking Mai's safety through the computer. What he found was shocking. The video cache not only had footage of Mai beating Iguma, but also recorded the beastly acts Itaguma had attempted on Mai. Right after, he received a call from the police. Early this morning, someone found that Mr. Iguma had passed away on a park bench. The cause was identified as a subarachnoid hemorrhage consistent with blunt force trauma. As for the culprit, the police currently had no clues. They only found out that Maizawa had a close relationship with Iguma and wanted to know if Maizawa knew anything. Maizawa knew entirely too much. Now, the secret of Mai being a cyborg definitely couldn't be kept. But compared to facing astronomical patent infringement damages, what was worse was that Mai had taken someone's life. This responsibility would inevitably have to be borne by him as the developer. After thinking it over, Maizawa chose to flee. On the same day, Rocketman confessed to his parents his dream of becoming a carpenter restoring ancient architecture, hoping they would support his decision to give up going to college. He had anticipated 10,000 scenarios of being scolded, but seeing her son had thought it through and was firm in his resolve. His mother simply said while washing the dishes, "You should have told us this sooner. Let me be clear up front. If you can't endure the hardship during your apprenticeship and want to give up, I will absolutely never let you back in this house." On the same day, Hidemaru spoke to his subordinate, who had been absent from work for days, and explained his plan to resign. In fact, he had long thought about helping his wife run her factory. But before leaving, he still couldn't help but give his immature subordinate some advice. "Whether I resign or you get fired, it doesn't matter to the company at all, because they will quickly find new replacements. Don't be naive enough to think you can challenge the rules with petulance. If you are truly confident in your talents, then work hard to prove your worth within the rules. That way, regardless of whether your superior is me in the future, I can be at ease." Also on the same day, Flower Chihuahua, with the help of service staff, took an accessible bus to the local driving school. For years, she had been unable to step out of the shadow of that accident, but today she was ready. Even if her physical disability cannot be cured, she still wanted to go to farther places and see different sceneries. Perhaps it wasn't just the three of them. The netizens, who had participated in raising Mai during this time, more or less felt something from the Sehno incident. For some, it would subtly change the rest of their lives. For others, I'm afraid it remains a chronic illness rooted in human nature. But being able to realize this is perhaps the true meaning of this experiment. However, Maizawa, the only one who knew the entire cause and effect of the experiment, understood that this experiment, aimed at creating a perfect cyborg, had completely spun out of control. The participants didn't know that Mai now bore the weight of a human life, and all the main control equipment in the laboratory was destroyed. From now on, as a fugitive, he could only be a bystander, watching Mai begin to live independently under the control of 3,000 netizens. Who knows where this democratic voting mechanism will ultimately lead her fate. That concludes the content of the first 2 volumes of the manga Demokratia. Actually, the manga was published in 5 volumes total, but I feel it's also quite fitting to end the story here with an open ending. After all, rather than how the story ends, the greater significance of this manga is the reflection it brings to readers during the process. Earlier, when seeing Twin Tails speak so righteously, I thought the author was using the character to elevate the theme of the work. But the next second, facing Iguma's assault, Twin Tails immediately flipped and chose to vent her anger through violence without considering the consequences. The most ironic thing is that the players who were just moved by her speech were in a blink of an eye swayed by emotion and made the decision to follow the crowd. A minor spoiler: if you read to the end of the manga, you will find that this Twin Tails, who led the players to flip-flop constantly, isn't even human in her true identity. Actually, isn't the internet environment in reality the exact same? We often use all our rationality and wisdom on judging the words and actions of others, yet frequently allow ourselves to impulsively and blindly vent our emotions. When taking sides on an opinion, there is no investigation or verification, relying only on a preconceived impression. When opposing an opinion, it's even more likely just wanting to be a contrarian and brush up a sense of presence. After all, even if we're wrong, we don't have to pay the price for a joke made in the virtual world. The internet has brought people closer to the world, but it has magnified the gap between our behavior in reality and the virtual world. And as the time spent using the internet drastically increases, this mask, worn only when surfing the web, has fewer and fewer opportunities to be taken off. Perhaps one day it will become your truest face. The consequences of the behavioral choices of the 3,000 netizens in the manga can still be intuitively presented through the mirror that is mind. But for us in reality, I'm afraid it's only when we come into contact with such profoundly meaningful works that we have the chance to properly reflect on ourselves. Well, thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please remember to like and support. Thanks for watching. See you in the next topic.